Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that the regular meeting commence at the hour of 7 p.m. And be it further resolved that Council acknowledges that we are meeting in the Robinson Superior Treaty Area on lands that have been traditionally used by several Indigenous nations. But we'd like to pay special recognition to our closest Indigenous neighbours, the communities of Biddigan, Shinabik, and Pic-Mobert First Nations. We wish to recognize the long history of the First Nations and Métis people in our region specifically and show respect to them today. All in favour? Call the meeting to order. And there is an addition to the agenda, right?
Yes, through the chair. There is one addition to the agenda, addition to agenda item number 1305. Request from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding participation in a telephone town hall session for input on ways to strengthen accountability mechanisms for municipal council members, dated April 27th, 2021.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that the agenda be approved as amended. All in favour? Next item is a delegation, and you're on, ma'am.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to present Mike Talker and Jillian Albert from Think Design, who were hired late last year to put together a multi-use trails master plan for the Township of Manitowoc. And we have gone through lots of public consultation and reiterations of the plan, and pleased to present to you tonight the final draft. And I'll hand it over to you, Mike.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. So I'm Mike Tucker. I'm a partner with Think Design, and I'm joined here with Jillian Albert, who's also a key member of the project team. Not with us tonight is Ken Huberman of Happy Trails, and he is a trail builder as well as an off-highway vehicle enthusiast. So he was a key member of our team, especially for the aspects of snowmobiling and off-highway vehicle recommendations, as well as cost of the trail improvements. So being conscious of your time, and I don't want to go into too much detail, so I'm going to basically highlight the purpose of the plan, the process, the recommendations, and the implementation strategy. And then afterwards, Jillian and I would be happy to, of course, answer any questions on specific trail recommendations that you might be interested in. So this project was in partnership with Destination Northern Ontario. So throughout the process, we were looking at the plan from both perspective of benefit to local residents as well as to visitors to Manitowoc in the region. So the purpose of the plan was to build on previous trail planning work done in the area, identify new trails and enhancements. We wanted to provide a blueprint for future trail projects. We also needed to make sure we aligned the community revitalization plan and the parks and recreation plan were both occurring at the same time, and provide general trail recommendations regarding signage, wayfinding, trail design standards, maintenance, and partnership opportunities. So we began the project last summer, but of course due to COVID-19 restrictions, all of our work was done remotely. The main tasks that we undertook included background review, inventory analysis, we did 13 stakeholder interviews, 2 surveys, and we did online engagement starting with the Bang the Table site, Manitowoc Trails.ca, and then we moved over to mymanitowoc.ca. And finally, we did a presentation to the Community Revitalization Advisory Committee. So from all this work, we developed 68 recommendations, and we organized them into 9 categories. However, it's important to note that many of those recommendations do benefit more than one type of trail user. So even though we're putting into a category, many of them are applicable across many different types of user. So those 9 categories are general recommendations, waterfall and rapids trails, canoe routes, trailheads, walking and hiking trails, mountain biking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and then off-highway vehicles and snowmobiling. So I'm going to go through each category and just give you a few highlights on them. I won't go into detail and discuss every single recommendation of the 68. For general recommendations, we have 13 of those. The first 6 really apply to different types of trails, or they apply to all different types of trails, and that includes things like signage improvements, as well as recommendations geared towards promoting trails. And then these next 7 recommendations are primarily related to developing and managing trails. We have 6 recommendations pertaining to the Waterfalls and Rapids trails. These recommendations are geared towards making routes to Waterfall and Rapids more accessible. We found that although they are a great resource for the community and for tourism, really aren't fully capitalized on. For the canoe routes, we have 13 recommendations. And really, these are looking at enhancing key routes through improvements, access points, and portage improvements. So while there are other routes in the area, we focused on a few routes in particular, sort of as a starting point. The ones that really should be focused on at the beginning. Because we really see, like the Rapids and Waterfall trails, there's real tourism potential for canoe trips in the area, and with Manitowoc being a launching point for canoe trips. Number 4 is trailheads. So we are making recommendations on both major trailheads and minor trailheads. 3 major trailheads we've identified, and then 18 minor ones. We have 3 recommendations specific to hiking, and these are trails that are closer to the town site. And for mountain biking, we have 1 recommendation to investigate the market potential for the Coolsa Ski Hill as a mountain biking destination at the ski hill in the off-season. We have 3 recommendations pertaining to cross-country skiing. And like many of our recommendations, these came directly from our stakeholder interviews, from those that were very much engaged in cross-country skiing. And similarly with snowshoeing, we have 2 recommendations, and these came directly from our stakeholders. And then finally, we have 9 recommendations pertaining to off-highway vehicles and snowmobiling. These came from both stakeholder interviews and as well as current trends in off-highway vehicles and snowmobile offerings in other parts of the province and across Canada. So all the details, of course, of these 68 recommendations are detailed in the plan itself. We've documented them all, mapping, a number of tables. And we've used careful numbering throughout the plan to help the reader navigate through the various recommendations. So the final piece of any master plan is really the implementation portion. So, of course, it's a critical part of the master plan process. And so we wanted to make sure that we provided a document that clearly identified the recommended implementation sequence. And to do this, we had to prepare cost estimates or assign a budget for each project. And then we developed a prioritization matrix, which uses the weighted criteria to help determine the order of projects that should be undertaken. So based on the matrix results, we organized the 68 recommendations into a 10-year schedule. And we also divided those 68 recommendations into 4 streams. And that was primarily just for organizational purposes as a way to be able to put this information on a page so it will make sense in the document. So these following tables I'm going to show you are based on matrix results, but also on other factors that are not easily considered in the decision matrix. So this included things like identifying project dependencies and efficiencies. So, for example, combining multiple smaller projects into one larger project. So a good example of this were all our recommendations on the trailheads. Individually, a lot of those projects are very small, would be not very appealing for someone to plan them or especially construct them. They'd be too small a contract for construction to make efficient. So we've lumped a lot of those together and made them one project that we implemented together for the sake of efficiency. Another example of what we had to do is make sure that the planning work would occur before construction. Obviously, this seems like an obvious one, but these are things that the matrix can't really take hold of. So we've made sure that the planning part of a project happens first, and then the construction or implementation part would happen subsequent to that. And then thirdly, we wanted to make sure that the expenditures were evenly distributed across the plan's 10-year time frame. So we wanted to make sure this was balanced, that you wouldn't have 1 year where there was a large amount of expenditure happening, which we got a lot of budget to, and then another year was quite a bit lower. So we tried to distribute expenditure across the 10 years as best we could to even it out. On that table, and on all these tables, you will see we just assign the cost of either operational plan, design, or construction. And this is for information purposes to help the reader understand the nature of the project. And then we, of course, across the top, we have year 1, year 2, year 3, where we haven't really assigned a year. We just said they should happen together in 1 year. And that is, of course, it's something we see advanced or delayed because of the priorities. You're not being on the hook for saying it can happen in year 2025. Across the bottom, of course, we have the total cost for that year. So this slide here shows Stream 1, which is planning, operations, and promotions. And you can see we've also color-coded everything based on the categories. So you can tell which category of trail the recommendation applies to. This slide here is for Stream 2 trails. This is for years 1 to 5. There's so many of these recommendations we weren't able to easily show in one slide, so this goes over to years 6 to 12, or 6 to 10, sorry, for the second half of Stream 2. Stream 3 is Waterfalls and Rapids. And then finally, the fourth stream, communities. So this slide here summarizes the cost by both stream and by the 9 categories. So you can see at the bottom right corner there, we estimate that for all 68 recommendations, it's about $2.9 million, which works out on average to $290,000 per year. So in summary, this is a 10-year plan. We feel it's an important tool to use for sequencing and budgeting, but it really must be used as a living document, and we need to be updated and refined and adjusted over time. So as new information comes available, as funding opportunities become available, certain projects may be advanced, which would then require the projects to be delayed. And it really depends, of course, on future directions and priorities of council as well. So it is a living document that needs to be updated over time. So thank you very much. Julie and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have on the project.
Any questions?
That section about going around the lake is not involved in that, is it?
No, so out of the community revitalization planning study, there is a recommendation to construct a loop around Manitowoc Lake, and that study will be presented to council in 2 weeks at the next council meeting.
Okay.
But the trail study from Think Design does weave the same kind of recommendations into their plan as well as further support for that project.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that Council receives, with thanks, the Manitowoc Multi-Use Trails Master Plan as presented by Think Designs, and be it further resolved that Council sincerely thanks the Manitowoc Economic Development Corporation and Destination Northern Ontario for assisting with funding to undertake this comprehensive plan, and further, the Council sincerely thanks the work of the Community Revitalization Advisory Committee for overseeing the development of the plan, and further, the Council's consider the plan during both the strategic planning session scheduled for May 2021 and budget deliberations scheduled for June 2021. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation. That's a great plan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 14th, 2021 are adopted as amended. All in favor? Thank you. No.
Through the chair, there was an omission on the original minutes that were submitted on the agenda online. That correction has been made.
There are no petitions. There are two pieces of correspondence. We need to bring either of them up. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that correspondence items 0801 and 0802 be received and filed. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that Council is in receipt of Administration Report ADM 2021-07 submitted by Jolene Keogh, Clerk, regarding civil marriage solemnization services schedule of fees.
Thank you, through the chair. As council will recall, we passed a bylaw last meeting allowing for civil marriage services within the community and outside community, and that a schedule of fees would be brought back for your consideration. That's reflective in the attached bylaw to establish 2021 services and charges. I consulted with some neighboring communities to see what was reflective of the fees that were used in other areas, and they are all very much similar. Some of them are a little bit different, only caveat being because some of the communities only allow for marriage services during regular business hours, not evenings or weekends or out of town. So we went with something that was very similar with what we would be looking at enacting here.
Any questions?
I thought it read that we had two prices in the bylaw. One for...
Yes, so one would be for marriage services within the community, and one would be if it was outside. So, for example, if there was a request for a marriage service outside, say at White Lake, the officiant would determine whether they would have time or would be able to do that, and so that cost would be reflected in that.
Okay, perfect.
No, I have no questions.
And be further resolved that upon conclusion of Council's review and consideration, Council approves the proposed schedule of fees for civil marriage services, and further that Council approves the bylaw being a bylaw to establish services and charges, and repeals bylaw number 2020-24 to include the schedule of fees for civil marriage services. All in favor? Thank you. And you're on, ma'am.
Just a very short update for you. We've been advised by the Manitowoc Family Health Team that the vaccine clinic scheduled for May 7th, which was the Friday, and estimating that 300 people will receive vaccines, has been changed to Thursday, May 6th, with only approximately 100 to 115 vaccines being made available to the community. So it may be another few weeks after that until we have another clinic, and the reason behind that is in order for all the communities to catch up at the same rate that Manitowoc is. We've been doing very well with vaccines, and we have to stay in line with the rest of the communities in the region. That's it.
That's it. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson, being a bylaw to establish 2021 services and charges be read a first and second time. And who's going to speak on this?
Through the chair, this is the bylaw that is updated to include the marriage services.
Okay.
Any questions about the fees? We're okay. And furthermore, be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-15. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that Council is in the receipt of Administration Report ADM 2021-08 submitted by Florence McLean, CAO, regarding personnel policies.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. As we've discussed in the past several meetings, I'm bringing forward 3 personnel policies to add to our binder. The first one being mileage expenses, and that is currently captured in a bylaw from 2016. So the information really hasn't changed, but the information will be readily available to staff by having it included in a personnel policy. The second is municipally owned vehicles and setting out guidelines as vetted by administration and also through council through the passing of the policy, what the expectations are of council with staff who are assigned municipally owned vehicles. And then the third being a personnel policy for mileage expenses and vehicle allowances if municipal vehicles are not available for staff, but staff require the use of a vehicle for their job, that they can apply through the application process to be reimbursed for a monthly vehicle allowance.
Any questions on any of the policies?
No, it's very thorough.
Okay, thank you. And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, council approves personnel policy number 2021-26, mileage expenses and vehicle allowance, and further that council approves personnel policy number 2021-27, municipal owned vehicles, and further that council approves personnel policy number 2021-27, travel expenses. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that council is in receipt of administration report FBA 2021-02 submitted by Owen Cranny, Fire Chief, CBCO, regarding Value Mart to put a seasonal garden center on municipal property.
Thank you. Through the chair. This report, council, is regarding the decision to place the annual greenhouse on municipal property next door to the Value Mart. We did meet with the new owners of the Value Mart, CEO Florence and I, and advised them of some of the work the municipality is doing in the future considerations. And they're open to other ideas, but this year, the short time frame now to get going, they're requesting to put it back in that same location.
Any questions?
No, through the chair, I think it's always been a good spot for it. It's right there. It's
Yep.
All right, good. And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, council permits the use of the property as requested for 2021 spring-summer season. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that council is in receipt of administration report TR 2021-07 submitted by Chris Towns, Treasurer, regarding tax write-offs for 2020. You're on, sir.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Through the chair, you've received my administration report. This is an annual report which requires approval of council. It's for property tax write-offs, which are property taxes that we levy the municipality because they have an assessment base and we do not pay ourselves taxes. So they're required to be write-off. On top of that, we have properties that we have vested. We have minutes of settlement. We have property tax adjustments, omitted assessments, etc., adjustments throughout the year, and we need to write them off. These amounts were always budgeted for, and it's an annual requirement for approval. If there's anything ever out of the ordinary, it would come to council in a closed session. We would discuss further. This year there was a shortfall due to the late tax sale, failed tax sale, where we haven't written off the total amount of taxes owing on the properties, as we are going to inspect the properties and come up with a minimum tender bid. Once those numbers are known, we will complete the write-offs. So that will explain the shortfall in the trial balance that I've shown you.
Okay.
And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, council approves the 2020 tax write-offs as presented. All in favor? Thank you. And you're still on, sir.
Still on.
Moved by Councilor Moffat, seconded by Councilor Hudson. Resolved that council is in receipt of administration report TR 2021-08 submitted by Chris Towns, treasurer, regarding utility write-offs for 2020.
As per the same with the property tax write-offs, we have metered water in our own facilities. We write those off quarterly. We don't invoice ourselves for utilities. We had budgeted for $60,000, and there was a slight over expenditure due to a closed resolution number 2020-36, and therefore we're slightly over our budgeted amounts. However, that was direction of council.
Thank you. And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, council approves the 2020 utility write-offs as presented. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that council is in receipt of the request from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to select the council member representing to participate in a session for input on ways to strengthen the accountability mechanism of the municipal council members. And that's for when? June?
Yes, through
June,
the chair.
June the 10th, I think.
Yes.
So. Are either of you interested in being in that telephone?
What is it? Exactly?
It's a telephone conference with the ministry, and all of the municipalities are going to be participating and talking about ways that we can strengthen the accountability of each council in every community. So they're just looking for one representative from each council. If nobody else can make it, I'll make myself available. But
I just need to check my work schedule. Give me 1 second.
okay, I think it's June the 10th.
Yes.
Yes.
Fortunately, I'm working.
It looks like I'm on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're on.
And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, council selects the following council member: Mayor McEachran. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Whereas Section 239.4 of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 C25 provides that before holding a meeting or part of a meeting that is to be closed to the public, the municipality or local board or committee of either of them shall state by resolution the fact of holding of the closed meeting and the general nature of the matter to be considered at the closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that this meeting is hereby closed to the public as the subject matter discussed falls under the following sections. Section 239(2)(e), litigation or potential litigation including matters before an administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local boards, that's 2224 Heron Walk. Section 239(2)(b), personnel matters about an identifiable individual including municipal or local board employees, community revitalization committee member appointment. Number 3 is Section 239(2)(b), personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. It's a lease agreement. All in favor? Thank you.